He was beaten to death and smothered in an attack by Sian Hedges and Jack Benham, fueled by whiskey and coke. The little boy died with dozens of bruises, broken ribs and traces of cocaine in his body. After the verdicts were delivered, the jury at Maidstone Crown Court were told they never needed to serve on a jury again because the evidence they'd had to listen to was so harrowing.
They seemed like an ordinary family, a young mother, her new boyfriend, and a little boy who was just beginning to explore the world. His eyes sparkled with curiosity, and his cheeks lit up with a smile that could melt any heart. Behind the facade of everyday life, no one wanted to notice the approaching storm. Behind closed doors, in a world poisoned by indifference and dark addictions, terrible things happened, and a small life ended. On one terrible November night, in the darkness of a cramped caravan, to the sounds of laughter and the heavy breathing of adults, the little boy spent his final hours not understanding why those who should protect him were causing such savage pain. His cries for help went unheard, his tears unnoticed. His death became a release from unbearable pain. This is the story of a little angel's short life, and his murderers, who continue to breathe and lie about their innocence, and about justice that came too late, when the little boy had already paid the ultimate price. On May 26, 2019, in Kent County, England, a boy named Alfie Phillips was born, a chubby-cheeked toddler with a mischievous smile and eyes full of genuine curiosity. According to his father, Sam Phillips, he could light up any room. He loved to cuddle, was full of energy, and reached for everything new, as all children do. From day one, he became his father's pride and, seemingly, his mother Sian Hedges' joy. In the first months of his life, Alfie grew like all normal children. First smile, first sounds, first attempts to sit up. Specialists at the local medical center carefully monitored his development, and at this stage, no problems were observed. Alfie reached for toys, laughed when tickled, and fell asleep to lullabies, like any other child who is loved and cared for. No one then could have predicted that this bright ray of light would be extinguished so early and so tragically. Sam Phillips, Alfie's father, already had 2 children from previous relationships. He and Sian began dating in 2017 when Sam was living in a trailer his mother had bought him. Sian, who was 21 at the time, quickly moved in with him, and their relationship developed rapidly. Sian Hedges' life was never peaceful. Behind her fragile appearance and often detached gaze was a traumatized soul. Born in 1996, she was the youngest of 3 children in a family that broke apart when she was just 9 years old. And at 13, Sian experienced serious sexual abuse from an acquaintance, which left an indelible mark on her soul. Her teenage years turned into a whirlwind of depression, anxiety, panic attacks, and mood swings. A psychiatrist who examined Sian later diagnosed her with traits of borderline personality disorder, a condition that makes a person emotionally unstable, impulsive, and prone to self-destructive behavior. Alfie's pregnancy became an internal struggle for Sian. She made several appointments for an interruption of pregnancy procedure, but each time she canceled at the last minute. During her pregnancy, she hardly communicated with her family. Her mother had moved to Devon with her new husband by that time, and her relationship with her father was tense. Lonely and confused, Sian even considered giving the baby up for adoption, but in the end, when Alfie was born, she decided to keep him. Motherhood did not make Sian more responsible or mature. In January 2020, when Alfie was about 8 months old, she complained of loneliness and isolation, talked about hopes of getting public housing to give Alfie a good chance in life. But instead of stabilizing her life for the sake of her child, she became increasingly immersed in toxic relationships and illegal substances, addiction. In spring 2020, Sian and Sam's relationship finally broke down. Arguments became more frequent and violent, and after one scandal, neighbors asked the couple to leave the property. It was then, in an atmosphere of emotional chaos and instability, that Jack Benham entered Sian's life. Sian and Jack met in September 2020 at a mutual friend's house, which was actually a trap house. This acquaintance, casual and fleeting, was poisoned from the beginning by their shared addiction to illegal substances. Jack, a 34-year-old man, had recently separated from the mother of his 2 daughters and now lived in a caravan in his parents' backyard. He immediately caught Sian's attention, and soon they began dating, with Sian not telling either Sam or Jack that she was effectively leading a double life. As summer 2020 came to an end, Sian began staying at Jack's place more often. Alfie, who was just over a year old at the time, was always with her, a small innocent being, an unwitting witness to the adult games his mother played. Sam began to suspect something was wrong when Shane started coming home less frequently and with a detached expression on her face. He vaguely remembered her mentioning some Jack she had met at a pub opposite the holiday park where she temporarily worked. Sam's suspicions were confirmed in the most painful way. On Shane's 24th birthday, he found her with Jack at one of her friends' houses. A major argument broke out between them, but as often happens in unhealthy relationships, they soon made up. However, Shane no longer hid her departures, though she continued to lie, saying she was staying at her grandmother's or father's when she was actually spending nights in Jack's cramped caravan. By November 2020, Shane was effectively homeless, drifting aimlessly between two men like a leaf in the wind, always dragging little Alfie along with her. She had the opportunity to provide him with a stable home. Her mother in Devon was ready to take them both in. But Shane chose to keep her son with her like a shield or talisman, moving between two homes unsuitable for a child. During this period, Alfie's life began to change, and not for the better. At first glance, he was still well-groomed, clean clothes, fed, with no obvious signs of neglect. But anyone looking more carefully could notice that the cheerful toddler had become quieter, sometimes frightened, and a shadow of anxiety appeared in his eyes, something completely uncharacteristic for small children. In Jack's caravan, there was no crib, no toys, no books, nothing a small child needs. Inside the caravan, bottles of spirits crowded the kitchen counters, just a few steps away from the cramped sofa bed and cartoon-themed duvet where all three slept. Alfie slept on this adult bed, often waking up at night from sudden noises or drunken voices. And around him unfolded another adult life, centered on dark addictions. Both Shane and Jack were addicts. They both used illegal substances that ranked second in the list of so-called hard illegal substances. Jack preferred a more destructive type, and his dosage was twice as high. They took the illegal substance in Alfie's presence, not thinking about what the child was seeing and feeling, and the danger to him. Later, traces of the illegal substance were found in the boy's blood. He was poisoned, even at a biological level, by the adults who were supposed to protect him. Incredibly, a practically homeless woman already heavily into illegal substances and alcohol, and who posed a danger to her child, did not attract the attention of social services. Even close relatives who genuinely loved Alfie somehow failed to realize that his mother was no longer good company for him. In the following weeks, loved ones began to notice worrying changes in Alfie's appearance and behavior. Alfie began to look pale and tired. He was often cranky and started to eat worse. Various strange bruises began to appear on his body, but Shane found an explanation for them each time. At the same time, Alfie developed other injuries that were not so easy to notice. He had a cracked arm from excessive squeezing and a broken bone in his foot, the mark of someone's heavy foot deliberately stepping on his tiny foot. These injuries caused pain and suffering to the little boy, who could neither complain nor defend himself. On the afternoon of November 27, 2020, Alfie spent time with Jack Benham's mother in Herne Hill, and the toddler was his usual lively self, with no sign of any injury. At 7 p.m., Alfie was returned to Benham's caravan in the grounds of his parents' home. For most children, it was an ordinary autumn evening: dinner, bath, bedtime story, a kiss from mom and dad before sleep. For 18-month-old Alfie, it would be the last evening of his short life. Jack and Shane weren't planning to spend a quiet family evening with the child. Their plans included a packet of coveted powder each, a liter bottle of whiskey, and a bottle of rum between them. At first, everything went well. The couple's mood was through the roof. They laughed and watched videos. By midnight, the supplies of the illegal substance had run out, and Jack, already drunk and irritated, insisted that Shane go to his dealer for an additional dose. At 2 a.m., she left the caravan for 40 minutes to buy illegal substances. In the cold night, the young woman, leaving her son with her half-drunk partner, went in search of a new portion. But she was unsuccessful. The dealer didn't answer her calls, and she returned empty-handed, further irritating Jack. At some point during the night, Alfie woke up and began to cry. Perhaps his teeth were hurting. At this age, children often suffer from teething. Perhaps he was bothered by injuries received earlier, or maybe he was just frightened by the noise and strange behavior of the adults. Whatever the case, his crying became the last straw for the adults, intoxicated by illegal substances and alcohol. Alfie became the target of their unbridled rage. Both of them, the mother who had carried him in her womb, and her man, turned into tormentors. The child, who simply wanted attention and comfort, became an irritating factor, an obstacle to their synthetic joy. What followed can only be described as an act of unimaginable cruelty. Jack and Shane spent several long hours testing little Alfie's limits. From the incredible pain, the boy screamed loudly and lost consciousness. But as soon as he came to a little, the adults would begin to torture him again. That night, Alfie received more than 70 injuries all over his body. Cuts, abrasions, bruises, internal hemorrhages, soft tissue damage, and fractures. Among them were complete fractures of the radius and ulna bones in both arms, just above the wrists. Imagine for a moment Alfie's little hands, still chubby, with dimples at the joints, with tiny fingers that were just learning to hold a spoon and turn the pages of books. These hands were brutally maimed. Bones not just broken but, according to the medical expert, shattered to pieces. To break a small child's bones, which by nature are flexible and elastic, requires applying enormous force. This is not an accidental injury or a momentary flash of anger. This is prolonged, conscious violence. Both of Alfie's legs also became objects of attack. The tibia and fibula of his left leg were completely broken, again, with force capable of crushing a child's bones. His feet were squeezed with such force that several bones broke. Alfie's sternum, the bone protecting the fragile heart, was broken. To break a child's sternum requires tremendous force and intent to cause pain. Several ribs also did not withstand the abuse. Alfie's face, which had always lit up with a smile at the sight of familiar people, became a target for blows. His head was squeezed so hard that bruises formed on most of his skull. A hand, perhaps the mother's hand, roughly covered his mouth to muffle his screams, with such force that the frenulum, the delicate skin between the upper lip and the nostrils, was torn. And perhaps most shocking, Alfie was repeatedly and severely bitten. The marks of adult teeth remained on his arm, back, and one leg. One of the bites was so powerful that it broke a toe, a savage act, almost inhuman in its cruelty. These injuries were not inflicted in a moment of anger, not in a second of clouded judgment. Given their number and nature, the attack must have lasted a significant amount of time during which little Alfie experienced pain and horror that are difficult even to imagine. Pain that no child should ever experience. Horror that no innocent soul should ever know. After the frenzy of rage came a lull. Alfie, exhausted, broken, but still alive, was placed in bed between his two tormentors. They fell asleep, unaware that the injuries they had inflicted were incompatible with life. At some point, while they slept, Alfie left this world, freed from pain and suffering. The morning of November 28th began for Jack and Shane with a horrifying discovery. At 11:30 a.m., Benham woke to find Alfie trapped under his legs and could not wake him. Shouting for help, he left the caravan with Alfie Blue and Floppy in his arms. In panic, they ran to Jack's parents for help. Jack's mother, Joan Benham, heroically tried to resuscitate the toddler, but it was already too late. Finally, her husband called 999. Alfie's body was taken to the hospital, where doctors officially pronounced his death. It was clear to medics and officers within minutes of him arriving in an ambulance at the QAM hospital in Margate that his death was no accident. On November 30th, an autopsy was performed. The following day, a preliminary report was issued. Death was caused by asphyxiation and multiple trauma. On December 3rd, the final autopsy report revealed a shocking picture of the torture Alfie had been subjected to. He was found to have 16 broken ribs, complete fractures of both arms, a destroyed left leg, and multiple signs of torture, including adult bite marks. The examination also established that the injuries had been inflicted at least 6 hours before death. This was not a flash of anger, but prolonged, methodical violence. Several previous healing injuries were also found. On December 4th, Kent police made arrests of Shane Hedges and Jack Benham. They were both officially charged with murder. At this moment in time, you are under arrest for neglect. You're under arrest for neglect of a child, okay? You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defense if you do not mention, when questioned, something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. No, you can't understand. What about? Okay, so the bruising to his eye. Okay, there's a deformation with one of the wrists. The hospital have also told us from an x-ray. Just wait a moment. Okay, that there's potentially an old fracture to one of the arms as well, which may have required some sort of hospital treatment at the time. but they can't find any records that show he has been taken. Okay. That's what we've been told. At my own time now, listen to me. I'm not saying that you have done anything at all, but listen to me. Just let me finish, okay? So, it's 2:33. What I have to do is arrest you on suspicion of child neglect, okay? Just listen to me. You do not have to say anything. The defendant's first version, that Alfie accidentally suffocated under the blanket, getting tangled in Jack's legs, was completely refuted by medical evidence. When it became obvious that this version was untenable, Jack and Shane turned to another tactic. They began to accuse each other. Shane claimed that the injuries must have been inflicted by Jack when she was away from the caravan trying to buy illegal substances. Jack, on the other hand, insisted that it was Shane who attacked the child while he was in a deep sleep in bed next to her and Alfie. Benham also tried to attribute the bites on Alfie's body to calming him down. What happened next? So you picked Alfie up, went straight up the house. Straight up the house. You said you tried to raise him by biting him. Whereabouts did you bite him? Well, I was holding him like this. It would have been somewhere around here. I was just screaming in his head, yeah. I've never been like that before, so. I didn't know what I was doing. Prosecutors were in no doubt. Both Hedges and Benham were responsible for killing the 18-month-old toddler. Jack, being stronger and more aggressive, most likely inflicted most of the injuries, including the destructive fractures. Shane, a mother who should have protected her child at any cost, at minimum did not stop the violence, and possibly participated in it herself. At least one of the bite marks on Alfie's body was left by her. The investigation into Alfie Phillips' murder continued for almost 3 years. The official trial began on September 12, 2023. The 9-week trial ended on November 30th. Alfie's father, Sam Phillips, listened to the evidence in court in horror. He was completely unaware of what his son had been subjected to. The long road to justice reflected the complexity of the case and the thoroughness of evidence collection. Senior Investigating Officer, Detective Chief Inspector Kathleen Way, said. And that's meant that the family have had to endure a lengthy trial, listening to the horrendous details of what Alfie has been put through, and the web of lies that have been told. After the verdicts were delivered, the jury at Maidstone Crown Court were told they never needed to serve on a jury again, because the evidence they'd had to listen to was so harrowing. The judge took into account mitigating circumstances for Shane, including her difficult past and mental health issues, but noted that these circumstances only slightly affect her guilt. Jack Benham and Sean Hedges, you come before me for sentence, having been found guilty after a trial at this court of the murder of Alfie Phillips on the night of the 27th to November 28, 2020. Alfie Phillips was your son, Sean Hedges, and at the time of his death, he was 18 months old. I was the trial judge. No one else but you were present when the assaults took place which resulted in Alfie's death. Neither of you has told the truth about what happened. You have each blamed the other, claiming not to have seen the assaults taking place, let alone admitting to playing any part in them. There was therefore no credible direct witness evidence before the court of the way in which the assaults unfolded. Nevertheless, despite the absence of truthful eyewitness accounts, the medical evidence and other evidence at trial means that I am in a position to be satisfied, so that I am sure that what follows is an accurate description of the circumstances of Alfie's murder and the part that each of you played in it. Alfie was born on the 26th of May 2019. His father was Sam Phillips, and at the time of his birth, you, Sean Hedges, and Sam Phillips were living together near Whitstable in Kent. By September 2020, your relationship was in difficulties. You started a relationship with Jack Benham, although you did not tell either Sam Phillips or Jack Benham that you were in a relationship with the other. By November 2020, you were effectively homeless. You divided your time between staying with Sam Phillips in his caravan and staying with Jack Benham, who was living in a caravan in the garden of his parents' house near Whitstable. At the time of Alfie's death, the two of you had been in a relationship for only a short time, about 10 weeks. You, Sean Hedges, were, until the night of his death, a loving mother to Alfie. You had no history of abusing or mistreating him, and Alfie was generally well cared for. But alongside that, you put your own interests first. You had the opportunity to provide Alfie with a stable home with your mother in Devon, but instead, you took him with you whilst you moved between your two partners on an almost daily basis. You took cocaine regularly and did so in front of Alfie. Indeed, Traces of cocaine from secondary transfer were found in Alfie's bloodstream. You spent a substantial amount of your income on drugs. You, Jack Benham, had recently separated from the mother of your 2 children. You had developed a major habit. Indeed, it was drugs that had brought the 2 of you together, and most of your time in each other's company was spent taking drugs. The medical evidence shows that Alfie suffered a number of injuries some 36 to 72 hours before his death. These consisted of a number of relatively minor rib fractures, which were caused by excessive squeezing, and the fracture of a bone in his foot, almost certainly caused by someone deliberately standing on it. I am satisfied that these injuries were caused by you, Jack Benham, as the result of inappropriately rough or bad-tempered treatment of Alfie. These injuries were not life-threatening. However, this mitigation is limited. Your mental health difficulties do not explain, let alone excuse, your conduct on the night of the 27th to 28th of November 2020. Thank you for watching this heartbreaking story to the end. The tragic loss of little Alfie Phillips is a painful reminder of the importance of protecting the most vulnerable among us. If this story moved you, please consider sharing your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to see more true crime stories where justice is pursued and truth is uncovered, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware.